Okay. So hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's event. My name is Beth Hinderleiter, Director of the Duke Hall Gallery of Fine Art, and it is my pleasure today to welcome you to this conversation with JMU Industrial Design professors Audrey Barnes and Kevin Fopp. They will introduce you to their current exhibition in the gallery, WN2T, We Need to Talk, which prompts us as viewers to reconsider all the upheavals that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought into our lives. I'm thrilled to have this exhibition in the gallery, as well as online for those in our community who are not on campus currently, to open a space for conversation on and processing of the pandemic. As Professors Barnes and Fopp will explain, this is a multisensory discursive design exhibition that deploys feedback on the pandemic, quarantining, physical distancing, loss, and violence on many levels. If we first felt the pandemic as a spatial shock through social distancing and the closure of spaces, now it's become a temporal shock as well, as we all wonder how long the pandemic will last, and what will the new normal be. The exhibition asks viewers to offer their thoughts about the pandemic. You can listen, read, speak, sing, whisper, and shout into a collection of intertwined analog amplifiers. You can visit the gallery in person on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for those of you who are on campus this semester, and the gallery website, jmu.edu/Duke Hall Gallery, features material on the exhibition as well. I'd like to quickly introduce Professors Barnes and Fopp before we engage them in a conversation about and virtual tour the exhibition. Afterwards, they will take your questions. So please post your questions in the chat as they are talking. Audrey Barnes holds a Master in Industrial Design degree from Rhode Island School of Design and a Bachelor of Industrial Design degree from North Carolina State University. As area head of industrial design at JMU, Barnes advances a design thinking approach in her creative problem solving to create new goods and services and to inspire action in her local community. Kevin Fopp earned a Master of Fine Art in Industrial Design from the University of Notre Dame, as well as the Bachelor of Art in Architecture and a Bachelor in Fine Art in Metals from Miami University. Working across multiple disciplines, Fopp uses design to solve problems of mobility, accessibility, and disaster relief. Please join me in thanking Audrey and Kevin for their work to connect us during this time of physical distancing.
Thank you so much, Beth. I hope that you can hear us in there. I'm trying not to get too much of an echo because I'm going to use my phone in a second to give you a virtual tour. But I'd like to start this presentation with a few thank yous before we sort of dig into the work. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my collaborator, Kevin Fopp, who is one of the kindest, smartest, hardest working people that I know. This exhibition would not have been possible without the support of 3 undergraduate students who took it on as an independent study. Kristen Sakal, Harper Kelly, and Paul Policastro. Thank you very much to each of them. We'd also like to thank Beth and the gallery's staff and graduate students that helped us with the installation, and to the gallery's committee who gave us this opportunity to really participate in what has been a wonderful experience for us. Thank you to the SIDA leadership, Dr. Kathy Schwartz, and to our newly christened Dean, Ruben Graciani, for the opportunity to just sort of have this space and time and support to do this kind of really interesting work. So for us, we approached this as a sandbox. This is a space much larger than any space that we've had on campus before to conceptualize something big and to actualize it. So it has been a really fun experiment. We approached this project as a social interest question, trying to really wring it dry from each angle individually. So it's an empathy experiment for us. It was a study in making, both from a computer-aided design process and an analog fabrication process, and a study in manufacturability, repetition of huge pieces in a space, and to really talk to humans, to try to understand what people are experiencing right now and to amplify their voices in some way. So with that, I'm going to turn over the floor to Kevin, and I'm going to switch to my phone and mute here. And we're going to give you a virtual tour of the exhibition itself. And Beth, I can't drop the YouTube link into the chat for some reason, but I emailed it to you. So if you want to send it to all of the participants, they can watch the video online. So we'll start with the video. Paul, if you'll please hit that. And then we have in-person guests too. And so for those of you who are watching at home, you'll be able to see it on the video. And we'll watch a few minutes of this, and then we're going to switch on to the virtual tour. Go ahead, Paul. right. So each of the words that you saw there were someone else's. They're not our voices, they're yours. They're anyone who participated in our survey, who input their information. There's only about 15, 20 people represented there in the scrolling marquees that you see on each side. We had over 120 responses, and they ranged from stop putting your coat on the kitchen chairs, you silly goose, to deep cries for support or understanding, for communication, for connection to humans. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who's going to walk you through the exhibition and let you sort of see the construction process of the pieces on the ground. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I'll pick up right there. At first I think about like, why do we do a project like this? Why do this? And we're talking about the connectivity of it. And Audrey and I were talking. This really began as something that was kind of personal between us as we tried to navigate this crazy new situation. We thought, there must be other people who have all of these questions, problems, issues, thoughts, and no one to really talk to about, so we thought there needed to be a way for us to express those things. And so this project was kind of born from that place, but it was also born from like our lifelong learning, I think, desires as educators. Like, not only do we teach, but we're always trying to learn more. And we explored that through kind of two lenses in this project, one being discursive design is like a new and newer evolving field, and something that we're both interested in and trying to kind of play in that space. And then also from a construction standpoint, I've made a lot of things, and I'm not really interested in making something that is easy anymore. So I'm always kind of looking for that challenge. And we did a boat building class a few semesters ago. Shout out to Cape Falcon Kayaks. They're like amazing help there and support from them. And through that class, Audrey and I had a conversation about what else can we do with this construction technique, the skin on frame building. And so these were kind of an exploration and hopefully what's like a longer body of work in that space for us. And so there's like a lot of mix here between traditional boat building ideas that goes back to the Greenland and Alaskan natives hundreds of years back, where they were building them by hand. And then a combination of new digital techniques that we have and digital fabrication tools, in which pushes it from traditional craft into a space of mass production and kind of industrial design, and kind of we walk that line a little bit, and that's why repetition was like really important to us in this. And so we do design these objects. We also kind of design a system to produce them through this exhibition. But what we have primarily are a frame from maple, and you can see most of these pieces are, they might look as if they were done by hand, but a lot of them were done mechanically. There's some laminated pieces here, and then these are stretched and skinned with a modern day skin. And skin is a term from the kayak construction, where they used to use animal skin, but this is a ballistic nylon fabric that's put on here and shrunk. And that gives it the nice kind of drum quality, and also enhances the sound and whatnot. And then, I think conceptually, like we also saw these as, this is like a voice, right? This is a person's voice or a group of people's voice. And so we thought that to really help with our vision of how important that was, that they needed to be elevated, that they needed to be lifted. And that's why we created these stands for them to kind of say, this thing is really important, it's precious, and we don't even want to touch the ground. Like, we're going to put it up on its kind of pedestal, And then obviously the animation and the text helps to really tie this together. That we really do hope that people will, stand and read and speak and think about and reflect on and try to have empathy for what others might be going through during this time.
Great, thank you. Switch back. Now you can see yourselves. All right. Are we back in here? Hopefully you can hear us. I'm going to exit out of the phone. So that is our exhibition kind of in a nutshell. We are, make sure that I'm here. Beth, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we wanted to talk briefly a little bit about our approach as this kind of metaphor for communication. You know, right now we're so distanced from people, physically distanced, socially distanced. We wear masks. You can't see my face. Am I smiling? Am I sticking my tongue out at you? You have no idea. So our capacity for communication is much minimized. You know, we've lost that. We like see the people in our pod and our families and our close social networks, the people that are kind of on the second ring of our networks. We interact with them some, but we've lost that third ring. Those taxi cab drivers, the people at the train station, the people who you meet in passing at bars and restaurants, who change your experience, who you don't connect with otherwise. So we wanted to try to have a vessel to bring some of those voices to the table, at least an attempt at it. Fully recognizing that we input all of the information in this system in a digital space, which required internet access and computer access and or network capacity in some way. And so obviously we've missed a huge swath of the population whose voices could be amplified here too. So that would be a kind of second step for us. But we approach this through what we practice as designers as an empathy undertaking. You know, we do sociological research as part of our understanding of humans to design for them and with them. And so, you know, when we started this process, it was about engaging with other people and trying to facilitate communication for them. For me personally, it was an opportunity to practice something that's become really important to us, this visual, graphical representation of ideas and information, especially on the fourth dimension, time. So taking, you know, my foundation in graphic design and learning things like Adobe Premiere to be able to create something that is engaging and articulate, but powerful and moving at the same time. And to really help build that empathy experience for as many people as possible. So as you approach these pieces, and I hope that the people in the room will approach them, we ask you to speak your own truth, but also to recognize the truths of others in this space. You know, take the time to read aloud some of the comments that other people have said. Try to feel what it feels like to be them. Try to put yourself in their shoes very literally. It was also a study in making, like Kevin said, you know, it came out of this desire for practice, for building things, to kind of better approach that. And we approached it through a mentorship model. We had 3 very talented senior industrial design students who we could not have achieved this without their help and support. They were not just students, but collaborators. You know, very much mentorship, I believe, goes in both directions. And if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have been able to achieve this. So the pixel icons that you've seen, the graphics for those were created by Kristen, run through digital parametric modeling software, which normally works in the 3rd dimension, but we did it in 2D this time. And so as they change and degrade over time, that was like her own creation. And then I overlaid them into the animation. So, you know, that made this much richer than I would have been able to do it on my own. And then the exhibition component. We don't typically put our work out in a big gallery on display. So this was a kind of a new experience for us. You know, we design things for other people that are mass manufactured and are displayed on the stores at places like Home Depot and Walmart, typically, or are designed in a much more industrial context. And to have this work be peered at and touched and really kind of meticulously looked over, it's a little disconcerting, honestly, but good at the same time. I think it's really valuable to kind of put ourselves out there in that way. So all of those things for us have been just an interesting approach to our practice, and a sandbox. Like I said at the beginning, like for me personally, I've not had the time, the space, the resources, and I'm thankful for the coronavirus for this reason, because this would not have happened without it. So to be able to like step back and build and engage and reflect in a really deep, meaningful way has been an amazing opportunity. So I'm really thankful. It's one of the highlights in an otherwise kind of terrible space. So we talked a little bit about discursive design, which is a kind of burgeoning field within industrial design. And I think that our practice here kind of matches the definition pretty directly, which is that in design practice, there's a kind of functional utilitarian quality to things that we build oftentimes. That's gone here. It looks like design, it smells like design, it tastes like design. But the point is not that it's some great functional object. Actually, they don't function as well as we had hoped. And there's lots of reasons for that. We can talk about failure in this space too. But that its primary purpose is to create discourse. Its primary purpose is to prompt reflection and curiosity and imagination and spark a conversation. And I think we were successful in that space. So I think, our hope is that this is a catalyst for anybody in here to think differently, for anybody watching online to see the deep anonymous thoughts of others and be able to reflect on them in a sincere way. So I think I'll step down and if you have any other thoughts to say.
Just one more thought in line with the mentorship aspect of this. I mean, we did work directly with these three seniors here, but we also, hopefully this was practicing what we preach, to you guys. And we kind of talk about a lot of different things. We talk about risk taking. So this is a pretty big risk for us. And in a time like this, to do anything is crazy. Balancing family life and all that kind of stuff. And just I think a lot of students will sell themselves short on what they think they can accomplish or what they can do. And I hope that this was inspirational, to some of you guys in that way. And it's really fun to work alongside the students and create things together. And I think there's such a better education there for you. And I've talked with a number of you about how we see ourselves as mentors, and that you have to take advantage of us. You have to engage us and use us beyond the classroom. And so I invite you to do that and to think about that. Just really like to thank Audrey for the opportunity to do this project together, and just all in all being a great colleague to work with. So that's all I got. Okay.
So with that, we'd like to open the floor for questions. I don't know if anybody has any questions, and there's a chat for questions for anybody who's virtual. If anybody has any questions from anything from construction process to animation to underlying context, we're open. Yeah, please. Y'all come up here.
Could you stand up there with them?
Yes.
This is as good as it gets. Students working together, but not only this initiative, all of you have been part of the process. We're all learning from this. This piece is so successful. So many levels. I love that you said, they don't function as well as we thought they would. It's almost irrelevant because you definitely hit the mark on capturing our attention, to listen to other things, moving, to actually go through it the first time in this quiet place. And this place echoes anyway. So anything that's said here is going to echo. So I would say the design part of this exhibition is exquisite in terms of how the function is set. You have 10 larger pieces that we can call speakers, but you also have 10 sound places that we can call microphones. Together, that's 20 illuminating year of 2020. All of this, really emotional and real challenges that all of us have faced together. And then you use those 20 different objects to connect them not only to each other through these beautiful wrappings of cords, but they fill the space just beautiful. So A plus in terms of exhibition, A plus in terms of, faculty and student collaboration, and just A plus in making us all feel good. I mean, you cannot experience this without feeling empathy and feeling good, so yay. Thank you. I don't have a question. I'm anxious to see what other people want to ask because I think it's terrific.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Gabby. Yes, please. Speak loudly, please. Speak really loudly.
I think the biggest problem is really not seeing any of that very close
All I filtered out was anything that was either hateful or just like inappropriate, and then edited for clarity. So that was mostly like people using their phones and making things capitalized, but no, it's unfiltered. It's amazing how positive it is. I mean, there are lots of points of like, this needs to happen. I think the anonymity of it allowed people to really speak their own truth. And it moved me. Like I've spent days with these, like scrolling slowly across my screen, and to like for me, like built like a deeper sense of empathy than I thought, and so I encourage you all to like spend some time with it.
A couple of thoughts there too. I think like, negativity and anger are kind of things that usually mask other things, right? That we put out there publicly. These are the anonymity of this allowed people to maybe share like what's really going on, I think. And I mean, quite honestly, like when we talked about this, like we realized that we have a really great friendship outside, beyond our working together, but we are like polar opposites in a lot of ways,
Right.
But the fact that we feel like, well, if we can get along, I think that's been another issue. It's just everything is so polar right now. It's like, it is negative or it's hate or it's this or whatever. And it's like, if we can do it, then other people can find a way to do that too, So,
Right. That like building of understanding for trust and respect, and that's where we start. We hope that people start to. Thank you so much. Other questions? Any questions? I don't think I can't see on the chat. Is there? Here we go. Do you think the pandemic has given us space to rethink about physical interactions in a new way? I keep thinking about the Me Too movement and wondering if this doesn't give us permission to do that. I think so. I think it's allowed us all to be really conscientious of our kind of physical space. My bubble is like pretty hard and fast at this point, and to have the like wherewithal and the feel empowered to like take that moment, to say you're too close, I think is helped. It's given us like a buffer, so it's not as awkward anymore. I guess that's my own personal experience. Yeah. There's another question. How many pieces did you make, and can you give us a pan view? Yes, thank you there, spouse. I'm on it. Give me just a moment and I'll give you a pan view. What about the students? Maybe the students could speak to their experience for a second. And if you would stand here so the people at home can. Tell us about making. Yeah, you're on.
I thought this project was really awesome. As designers, we talk a lot about empathy and, being able to understand people's emotions and being able to share them. So I really love that we could have all these people answer our survey to get that part in this project. In addition to that, making all these individual pieces was a lot of work. A lot of smaller things come together, make even the pieces themselves. And then these larger pieces make this huge exhibit. Really cool to see. I've never really had the experience to work on a team like this. And much like the pieces themselves, all of our smaller contributions make this huge thing, and I think it's really awesome to see.
I think initially there's also a concern of like when we were coming up with the concept and we were helping Audrey and Kevin figure out like what is this whole thing about. We were really concerned about there being a lot of like hate, like what Ryan mentioned, and a lot of terrible just like things that we would have to trudge through in order to get something beautiful. But as it turns out, the way that we surveyed people and gave them a space to just kind of talk and voice their opinions without any kind of like, without any other context. It really came out, I think, genuine. And like what Kevin said, there is a lot of different feelings that come with context. And when you're talking to somebody else, there might be a lot of anger and hatred towards what you're saying or who you're saying it to. But I really appreciate that a lot of these responses are really genuine. I think that was really awesome to look at. And the animation that Audrey made was really impressive. So.
And on the making aspect, to fill up this whole space, it was a really good experience to be able to learn like a true industrial design process, figuring out the fastest way to make every single piece and fitting everything together, a jig for cutting every angle of every piece,
So many jigs.
clamping everything up. It was just a really good experience to learn.
Thank you, Audrey and Kevin, for being so awesome and teaching us literally everything from the beginning to the end. Thank you.
I don't know if there are other questions. I'm like showing you the video. Okay. Any other questions? Space? If there are no other questions, then we can adjourn this. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us virtually. Thank you so much to our students and faculty and staff who came here in person. And please take a look. There's a YouTube link at the top of the chat if anybody is interested in deeper diving in the animations. But thanks so much. This has been a fantastic opportunity. I encourage you all that are in here to come and play with it for a few minutes before you head out. Great, Beth, I think we're all set.